So now that the tiny boat build is structurally done, of course I have other projects and ideas that I want to do with it. I figured I would just go ahead and just chat a little bit about things that I learned and things that I would do different if I were to build this boat again. Number one thing I would do different is I would pick a different boat. The only main reason I built this boat is it had sentimental value. Is it the exact hull that I would have chosen? No, I would have probably chose something with a little bit more V entry and a little bit more capability as far as crossing open water, but that's just because of the areas that I take the boat most of the time. Usually crossing some sort of bay or something like that. So yeah, I would have probably started with a different boat, but this is what I had, so I went with this. So the next thing that I would have done different primarily revolves around the floor. If you remember, I did a full stringer system in the floor of this thing, and that was a ton of work, a lot more work than I thought it was going to be, and it ended up being a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. I had thought about just layering in a bunch of Divinycell foam and then fiberglassing over that, and that's probably the best bet on a little boat like this. So if you're building something like this, I highly recommend that instead of doing a stringer network, lay a couple of layers of fiberglass in the hull to reinforce the hull, make it stiffer, and then just glue in your foam core all the way up to the height of the floor, because I only went about 3.5 inches above the hull for the floor, so there's only about this much space in there. It's really not enough space that it warranted stringers, but I kind of wanted to try doing stringers, and I thought ultimately it was going to be cheaper. In reality, I think it was more expensive. I could have just bought a couple of sheets of foam, glued them in, and then fiberglassed over it. I would have had all of that buoyancy foam in there. It would have been completely locked so that water never gets in there, and it would have gone way faster. I mean, it took me months to do the stringers in this thing, and that's time that I lost of having the boat on the water and playing. It works. It's very sturdy, very stiff and strong, so I'm not regretting the way that I did it. But if I had the opportunity to do a project like this again, I would totally just layer the foam in, and I recommend you do the same. It's not cheap, but building a boat's not cheap. All right, the next thing that I totally would change on this is get a good motor right off the bat. So I've gone through 3 different motors on this boat, ultimately trying to save a couple bucks, and in the end I ended up spending way more. I now have a nice brand new Suzuki 20 horse 4-stroke. You push a button, the thing fires right up. It's fantastic. I started out with the little Mercury 9.8, and I just couldn't get the stinking thing to run good, and it wasn't enough power anyway. So then I went and did a bunch of shopping and found the Tohatsu 25, and it's a good motor. It pushed this thing really good, but it's an old 2-stroke, and it was so finicky, and I was just endlessly fighting the motor to get it running good, and then when it would be running good, something else would break, and it wasn't reliable enough that I trusted anybody else to run it but me. And ultimately I built this boat for my family and friends to be able to use, not just me. So I needed something on here that was going to be reliable and steady, or I definitely should have just right off the bat invested in a good motor like the one I've got now. All right, number 4 that I would do different. I would not have made it a V-bow. Now, that was more of a challenge to myself than anything. I wanted to see if I could actually cut this thing and make it into a V-bow. And it was kind of turning this boat into what I wish it was, not just rebuilding what I had. And that would have also cut a lot of time off the build process. Have I gained really anything off of making it a V-bow? A little bit. So when I'm crossing open water and it gets a little choppy, the bow does split those waves, the small chop that develops here in the bays and stuff. So there is a benefit to having that. Was it worth the time, effort, and money to do it? On this little boat, probably not. So it was more of a, let me see if I could do this, challenge to myself than anything. And it's probably something, if I were to go back and build this boat again, I wouldn't have done that. And then that takes me to number 5. I would have built this boat completely different if I were to build it again. I would probably have just left it under the basic parameters that it was. Flat bow, no sponsons, and just reinforced the hull and thrown the thing back in the water and been done in about a month. But what's the fun in that, right? So there you have it, the 5 things that I would do different if I were to build this boat again today. I hope you learned something from this. I hope that it helps you with your project. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments for me. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, like the video, share it with all your friends. That means a ton to me if you would do that. And until next time, I'll see you out on the water.